It's the Hake Report, and we're talking about SH whole countries and other things.
Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la. Oh, it's the Hake Report, the Hake Report, la la la.
So good. I hope you enjoy my theme music. This is the Hake Report. I'm James Hake, and it is no longer with Joel and Esteban. I have to remind you guys because it was 15 episodes, excellent episodes with those guys, but now it's just me, and I'm talking about various things today. Number one is about Trump's supposed comments, which the media report as factually happened, but it's not established fact. But President Trump supposedly called various African nations SH blank whole countries. And people were offended by it, and some people applauded it because it happens to be true. And so there's various drama about it. Some of the leaders of these African nations, are we live?
Yeah.
Okay. Some of the leaders of these African nations went crazy. Well, not crazy, but they're saying, "Oh, we can't be having this. We can't be having President Trump telling the truth about our situation. We are not blank whole countries." And I will be getting to your calls very shortly, but I want to hear from you about it, and you can call in at 888-775-3773, 888-77-JESSE. And by the way, I wanted to thank my friend who I interviewed a couple of weeks ago, AJ Gallardo, for that awesome track, the Hake Report theme music. So great. And I want to talk about a few other things. I want to talk about like the quality of people that liberals are versus conservatives. And basically, I'm going to say that all liberals are wrong and most conservatives are wrong. But there's some conservatives who are right and no liberals who are right. Isn't that interesting? So like the criticisms that they have of conservatives, in many cases it may be true, but in many cases not. And I also want to talk about the silent prayer, Jesse Lee Peterson's silent prayer. He has a silent prayer that you can find on rebuildingtheman.com/church. Rebuildingtheman.com/church. It is Sunday, January 14th. How are your New Year's resolutions holding up? I want to know. Or do you make them? Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, yes, sir. This is Jeff calling from Chelsea, Massachusetts. How you doing?
All right, Jeff. Thanks for calling.
You're welcome. Well, that comment that Trump made or supposedly made, here is the blessing with that incident, is that it is exposing a divide in America between the old school and the new school. The old school is usually people, I'm 47, and this is usually in my age range and above, which is more of the old school, and then the 30 and below, which is more of the new school. And there's a few people in the new school that are in the old school category, right. But it's exposing it. And you see, the people that voted for Trump are mostly people in my age category and above. And it's the old school that goes right on, Donald Trump. You're right on. You're right. Telling the truth. And the new school is saying, Donald Trump, you are a racist, you are a bigot, and you're going to lead these immigrants into the gas chamber.
Right.
And you see, and this is very, very dangerous. This is ginning up the left to commit acts of violence.
It is.
And that they are like the French partisans back in Nazi Germany, fighting against Hitler, fighting against Trump and the evil white man. And this is so dangerous. I mean, it would take me too much time to get into how dangerous it is.
Yeah.
But I said it on other shows that basically this is very similar to South Africa. and so
Oh,
forth.
yeah.
So all I have to do is just look at South Africa on how Nelson Mandela ginned up the people of South Africa, saying how evil the white colonialists are, how they are raping you, how they are enslaving you.
Mandela said all those things?
Well, no, well, I'm just
Or his crew, the people, his followers, whatever?
What?
His followers said those things?
No. Nelson Mandela stirred up the people through his class warfare, attacks.
Wow.
I'm not quoting Nelson Mandela. I'm saying that if you listen to if you look at the rhetoric and read the rhetoric of South Africa, it's classic communist warfare, communist class warfare, which is just how evil the colonialists are, which is what Mugabe did in Rhodesia, just stirring up the people, pumping the hate through lies and rhetoric, to where the people got so incited that genocide was committed, and that's what this garbage is.
Yeah,
well,
that's...
James, James, thank you for having me on, and do have a good one.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. Good input. Yeah, that's true. He's right. And actually, if you look at what Obama said, now he said I think that this guy said that he's not quoting Nelson Mandela, but if you read between the lines, if you look at the rhetoric, that's what it was doing. And this is what Barack Obama did in this country, with the help of all of the media and the academics and all those people who tend to be very liberal and anti-good people, basically. Pretend to be good people, but they're not. And Barack Obama stirred up and divided the races like crazy. And then when Trump came in like an old school American man and told the truth, they went nuts. And he's right. And if you look at the thumbnail that I made for this episode, and Joel, I put that thumbnail in there. It's called SH Whole Countries, something like that. And yeah. And so if you look up there, there's a woman who was up in, I believe, San Jose at a Trump rally, came outside, and illegal alien activists attacked her, called her racist, threw eggs at her, and there she is. And now these African leaders and the liberal media and everybody else are calling President Trump racist for saying that we don't want so many immigrants. Why do we have... supposedly saying that why do we need so many immigrants from SH whole countries? And as Patrick says on our live chat, the blunt truth hurts. Democrats are screaming to hide the truth that they bring people from S whole countries for one reason only: votes. And that is a very good point. Now, there are a mixture of immigrants who come into this country. And it is true that many of them are very hardworking, and they put some of the native-born Americans who have been spoiled or whatever, just don't have a sense of the opportunities that we have, to shame because they are so enterprising. There's one immigrant Andre, who worked for Jesse, worked as our board operator before Joel replaced him. And he is so enterprising, business-like, investing and all these things, and it's stuff that I don't even think of. I work hard. I put my nose to the grindstone, if you will, but I don't think in that way. And they're very smart, hardworking, enterprising, business-like immigrants. But there's a whole lot of other ones who are not that way, who are basically a drag and crowding out the lower class, if you will, people who are suffering and need the help that they can get and need to get jobs. Like if you look at black unemployment is consistently double the average unemployment of the rest of Americans on average. So if you consider that, and you consider the welfare state that we have, because they claim that immigrants coming here are just like the Founding Fathers. And by the way, the Founding Fathers were not immigrants. They were born here. They were born in this land. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, of course, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, all those guys were born here in the American colonies. They didn't flock to the shores, and they didn't have it easy. It was rough here. It was a sink or swim type of a situation. Whereas today is very cushy, even though people work hard, yes, but it's very cushy, and people don't come here. They're like, I can't make it. I got to go back. Because back in the day, that's how the immigration was. People came here. It was a lot tougher than they expected, and they went back many times. And so the situation is that there are a lot of unhardworking or at least low-quality people that don't have American freedom values. And that's something that white Americans have statistically more than anybody, especially the white males. And the white males are hated because they don't vote liberal. They're hated by the media because if you look at the voting records, white males voted for Trump on the whole. Now, it wasn't 90-something%, but it was over 50%. It was most. Meanwhile, you look at the liberals and you see, for example, the Judge Roy Moore, who was in Alabama, running in Alabama. The black female vote was 98% against him for a pro-abortion, liberal, pro-same-sex marriage Democrat, who has a gay son, by the way. And I didn't know that, Doug Jones. So you look at that, and it's just crazy. And that is very much like how many immigrants vote, because especially immigrants of color, because they get sucked into that, the temptation to fall into that thinking of identity politics, which is more on the liberal side than on the conservative side. Identifying with where you came from and all this stuff. And, President Trump doesn't respect me because he said that my country is a blank hole. But that's not the case. If you talk to President Trump or if you hear him, he says, I love Mexican people. The Haitians are great people, but their country is messed up. And if you consider fairly, poor quality people make a poor quality country. That's why America has taken a dive, because we've become of less quality than we used to be. So we're just not tough anymore. So I loved his supposed comments. I don't know if he actually said them, but he said his language was tough. But it's a mess. And so CNN, of course, which is fake news, called it a bigoted slur. They called it racist. They called it racism. If you look closely at CNN, it is a lot of liberals, children of liberal politicians such as Chris Cuomo, who's the son of the governor of New York, who's very liberal. Andrew Cuomo, I think is his name. And you look at Don Lemon, who sometimes pretends to try to have a fair mind, or maybe he's really trying, but he just can't. He has called out, for example, fair-mindedness. He has called out 73% out of wedlock birth rate as a problem in the black community. But with Trump has drawn out all the wickedness out of Don Lemon. Don Lemon has grown his hair out into a tiny little afro thing, and he's gotten all tough and scolding people like he's their mother, saying, you have to respect me. He was interviewing some guy who apparently supports Trump to an extent. And this guy said about the SH countries, it's not about race. That's lazy and that's easy. And that triggered Don Lemon so bad, because you don't call a black man lazy. And so Don Lemon was like, he let him go on for a little bit, and then he got mad and said, you don't call me lazy. And then he kicked him off, and then he brought him back and forced the guy to apologize. And Don Lemon said that Donald Trump is racist, and his supporters, anybody who defends him or makes excuses for his racism, is as bad or worse than Donald Trump. And he said, if you guys want to call me racist for pointing out racism, which many people who are a little bit more clear-minded do call him racist because he's so hung up on his race. But in reality, racism does not exist. But you can cut some of these conservatives some slack for calling him racist because that's all he's hung up on. So, and there are many liberals who have noticed. There's one woman, Beate Chalette, who was pro-Hillary in this big town hall that Jesse held. Jesse Lee Peterson and our nonprofit organization Bond held a debate between a Hillary supporter and a Trump supporter. And this Hillary supporter admitted, she was an immigrant, by the way. She admitted that in her experience, blacks are the most racist people in America. And so there are people across the board that recognize that this getting hung up on your race makes you become exactly what you're accusing other people of being. And it makes you be the hateful, selfish, ugly, in some cases violent, as my caller said earlier, people that there are. And so you look at the San Jose rally where Trump was, there were illegal aliens and their supporters, all these people who believe that racism is real and it's a problem and it's white people doing it. They attacked the white people. And you look at Colin Flaherty's videos, and not just Colin Flaherty, just look at the statistics put out by the DOJ. The black on white crime is wildly disproportionate. And in many cases, that's partly because of the belief in racism. And so that is one thing that holds blacks down in addition to the out-of-wedlock birth rates. When you're born out of wedlock, you're born in most cases to a single mother who has it tough, like Jesse says, and she gets mad and she becomes a pain for the father and she becomes a pain for the children. But yet there's this emotional love, and this is what the liberals believe in, is emotional, quote unquote, love. Whereas Trump is kind of unemotional. He's emotional maybe, but he is a tough love kind of a guy. And that's what we need so badly. So I loved the comment. I didn't have any problems. And as Mark says, these people who predate our founding fathers, by the way, by maybe 100 or 200 years, were not immigrants. They were settlers or settlers. And so we are not a nation of immigrants. A lot of times people say, oh, immigration is the lifeblood of the country. And these people work so hard and they wash your sheets in the hotels and they pick your berries and apples and fruit and they make life so easy for us and they mow your lawns. But this is something that we could have the blacks doing who are unemployed, or in general the people who are unemployed doing. Many able-bodied people are unemployed in this country. Fewer now because thanks to President Trump. And black unemployment has dropped thanks to President Trump. But we need to just get rid of welfare, get rid of these very cushy unemployment benefits, and kick out the illegals, and then things will get better. And I believe that this is what Trump will do, wants to do. Now, he pretends to want to save DACA. And he's like, oh, this is such a tough situation for me. And DACA, if you don't know, is Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, meaning illegal aliens who arrived here before they were 16 or something, around 16, when they were minors, basically. And many of them are in their 20s. I think the median age or something like that is 22 or something. And many of them have become MS-13 gang members. Many of them came in those surges that we saw over the past 4 or 5, however many years. Remember when we saw people crossing the Rio Grande River? They were just flooding across the borders and by the thousands, and we weren't turning them around. We weren't sending them back. We were distributing them to like Marietta and other places all around the country including there was a place up in Maryland or New York or someplace where this boy, this illegal alien boy, 17, maybe 18 years old, had sex with a freshman girl. And I think she falsely cried rape on him. And so that was a big uproar. But the point is, I mean, you don't be having sex in a high school. You're 18 years old with a freshman girl. These are some pretty disgusting people. And look at the out-of-wedlock birth rates. Jesse Peterson mentioned how, according to, I think, CNS News or something like that, they cited a Center for Immigration Studies report where 77% of American-born black women who are having children are having them out of wedlock. And I think this was in as recent as 2015 was the year of these stats were from. And the foreign-born immigrants who were having children, many of them were having children out of wedlock. We shouldn't be having any immigrants come in who are having children out of wedlock. We need to be bringing in ones who are as good or better than us. But it's even worse among the Hispanics. Hispanics have a high birth rate. They're having more children out of wedlock, raw numbers, than blacks are. And they also outnumber blacks, by the way. Blacks are a smaller minority than Hispanics now. And so the Hispanics are having out-of-wedlock birth rates at something like 56%, the ones who were born here. So the ones who were born here, they were spoiled. Many of them came legally. Many of them came illegally. Many of them are quote-unquote anchor babies. And they're having children, and they're having children out of wedlock at a birth rate of 56%. Now, the immigrants who are coming here, the foreign-born Hispanics, are having it at 46 or 48%. They're the highest immigrant out of wedlock birth rate in the country. And whites are pretty bad too, and now the immigrant out of wedlock birth rate is a little lower in every case, but some cases significantly lower. The black immigrant out of wedlock birth rate, although it is unacceptably high, it is much lower than the one. I mean, I think it's around the same as the white out of wedlock birth rate, which is around 30%. So it may be even lower than that. So it's crazy. And you consider that the immigrants disproportionately get suckered into this liberal thinking. Many of them become very educated, and they went on Twitter and were like, President Trump, I'm from a hashtag SH blank hole country. And they said, oh, I am educated, I have a career. They listed specific degrees that they have and careers that they're in. They're doctors, they're all these things. They're scientists, they're linguists, they speak multiple languages, basically touting all these physical attributes that they think should make President Trump want to bring in more of the same type of people to the country. But many of them are basically liberal activists. They're Trump haters. Some of them are not so much activists, but they get suckered into this liberal thinking, anti-Trump thinking, a lack of concern for the country. And you think, and you consider, and Jesse Peterson wrote an article that's coming out on World Night Daily, and it'll come out later today. You can check it out. Follow Jesse on Twitter at JLP Talk to see he'll put up a link to that later. But Jesse wrote about, and World Night Daily wrote about how the Somali immigrant community, Somalian refugees or whatever, they're causing major problems. Their biggest population is in Minneapolis, and they're attacking whites. They are causing problems. There was one situation where a Somali immigrant basically like stabbed a white woman out of nowhere. She didn't even know him. And there were some that were shouting jihad and driving across lawns and stuff like that. So they're kind of out of control, and the police are very politically correct. There was a police sheriff who attended Obama's counter-extremism thing back in 2015 or 2014. And this guy, he talked about this imam, this Somali imam, as his very good friend. And only through this imam was he able to gain the trust of the community, the Somali community. Why even bring these problems into the country? Unless, as Patrick says, it's for votes. So it's a mess. Anyway, I want to move on a little bit. CNN is very much promotes homosexuality as a good thing. They did this article, and Joel, you can put up this article title about bigoted, racist comments and slurs aside, America is changing whether you like it or not. America is changing. Bigoted slurs, immigration bans, and racist rallies can't change that, by Michelle Krupa of CNN. And that came out on Friday. And basically she starts to list off how, like I said, how the founding fathers flocked to our shores, which they didn't. They were already here. And all these things. And presently I come across this thing where, as you go down the list, and she's talking about how Lyndon B. Johnson said that this would not change the daily life of the country. However, it has. Oops. And so that's so evil. They're basically celebrating the decline of white people in America as though diversity is inherently a good thing. To me, I've always thought of diversity as neither good nor bad. It can be bad. It can be good. But in general, because they promote it so badly, it's bad, because they're promoting this nonsense. In addition to that nonsense, which is a false value, diversity is a false value. In addition to that, they're brainwashing people to believe in racism. They're brainwashing people to support bringing in people that don't have the freedom values that I mentioned, because I don't know, something about it. There are people who just don't understand, for example, the freedom to discriminate. Patrick has brought up before, I've seen, free association. We all have the right to associate or dissociate with each other, to do business with one another or not. But liberals don't believe in that. They believe that, well, they kind of do, only for their case, but not for conservatives. They believe that Christian bakers should have to be forced to bake gay cakes for same-sex weddings, and all kinds of crazy things that are just evil. And they're also promoting, in this article, Joel, there's one of the slides says that the way that people are able to marry the people that they love, that also has changed in America. And this is a whole topic about immigration, but she's including the LGBT people, who are a long persecuted community. And she says that more than 4% of American adults, 10 million people, identified last year as LGBT, a rate that slowly has risen as governments, businesses, and faith groups have heightened protections and opened their arms to a long persecuted community. And so it's just a mess, because basically she's celebrating that they've promoted homosexuality and put it in people's minds and poisoned people's minds. And homosexuals and liberals, the radical ones, target children to brainwash them into accepting wrong as right and traumatize them. And because children naturally know that's wrong. There's something wrong with that. They may laugh about it. They're not going to be judging you with it, but they'll say something that's going to pain you. I've said this before. They'll say something to you, whether you're fat or you're homosexual or you're something weird about you. They may point it out, and they don't necessarily hold it against you, although they think it's weird, and they may kind of stay away from you to protect themselves, but it's going to be the painful truth many times. And so they target children, they target Christians, and because these are the people and they target common sense people. There's many common sense people who are not necessarily Christian, who know that this stuff is wrong. They don't promote it. It's not logical to be this way. It's not good to be this way. They're just common sense people who know that it's wrong, but they don't want to acknowledge those people. They want to pretend that those people don't exist. Because if you educated enough of them, you can brainwash them into accepting wrong as right, or just not caring. which is the case in many cases. And you can call in, by the way. It's 888-775-3773, 888-77-JESSE, because Jesse is the executive director or producer of the Hake Report. And by the way, we have a very good church service that probably all of you guys know about, but you should know about it, spread the word, and help it grow, and help me promote it, because I am actually the producer of The Church with Jesse Lee Peterson, and I want that to grow. And there are ways to make it grow that I'm probably not doing, that I don't see, so help me out. So go to Church with Jesse Lee Peterson, which is rebuildingtheman.com/church. I've worked hard on making that page better and more telling what church is really about, and pointing people to the right place so that they can find the church service, they can come to the meetings, they can know that it's not your typical church where it's just preaching, singing, feeling good, and nothing changes. It's actual open and real, honest dialogue, and it's also promoting the truth, and it's promoting prayer. And on that page, you can find the silent prayer which Jesse just recently made a new version of instructions for. He did it live on New Year's Eve, Sunday, December 31st, 2017. And when he did that, we cut it and made it into a nice audio recording, which you can download, share, all those things on SoundCloud. And we have a Bond SoundCloud as well as Jesse Lee Peterson SoundCloud and all that. And you can find it on either one. We have it on either one. And so people have been accusing Jesse of being like Eastern or New Age. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because the silent prayer is actually biblical. If you listen to the instructions that Jesse gave at church a couple weeks ago, as well as the previous versions that he's done, he's talking about you don't know what to ask for. The Holy Spirit prays on your behalf. And that is in the Bible. And I'm not going to cite it because I don't feel the need to, and I don't know it offhand, but I know that it's in the Bible. It says the Holy Spirit does, praise and groans with that words cannot express, stuff like that. And he's also said that be still and know that I am God. That's from the Bible. And I think it's from Isaiah or something like that, or Jeremiah, one of those Old Testament books. And when you translate the original language, the be still is translated as cease striving. And many people, although we are supposed to press on and aim for perfection and all that, many Christians are strivers, where we try to do what's right and we try to overcome sin, and we get hung up on what we think is sin and our flaws and things, and it becomes kind of a selfish, prideful pursuit. And God says, cease that. And he's like, why do the nations rage? And that's part of that passage. And so that's biblical, and I'll get to more of that. But first I want to get to my caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from? Caller, are you there? Hello?
Oh, gee, are you talking to me?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Hey, who is this?
Don, calling from New Mexico.
Hey, Don. Is this your first time calling Jesse or me, or have you called Jesse's show in the past? I think I may recognize your name.
I've called Jesse's show in the past.
All right.
So I just had an encounter, and I just need some common sense thrown at me.
All right.
I just had to deal with. I'm in more of a religious field, and I got on a radio show where I was dealing with people who are taking some kind of a punished black perspective and adding it to Christianity.
By punished black perspective, can you explain?
Well, I mean that victimized
Okay.
black people, and how the white people have oppressed them, and now
Okay.
they're all going to hell because some white man lied to them.
All
And
right,
I'm
I got you.
thinking, where is this coming from?
You're asking me, and what was your reaction to
Well,
them?
my reaction?
Yeah, when
I
you
told them that
you called into their radio show?
yes. Well, I was asked to be a part of the show as part
Okay.
of their panel,
Yeah.
and I think I was the token white guy.
Did you tell the truth?
Did I tell them the truth?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
I sure did.
What did you tell them?
And I told them that I was ashamed of every one of them, because they had some fella on there that actually was saying that the darker your skin, the closer to God you were. I said, I can't believe you're letting somebody say something as stupid as that
Yeah.
on a Christian radio show. This has nothing to do with Christianity, and it really had to do with the fact that this attitude of agreeing to disagree and all this
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
You've got your opinion and I've got mine.
Like
and
everything is
we're all
valid.
entitled to our opinion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, say again.
Like everything is valid. That's your truth. This is my truth type of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you listening?
No, I'm familiar with that thing, and Jesse has talked about it too, and he's talked to like black guys who look like they should have some sense, and they say stuff like that as though they've been listening
Yeah.
to Oprah or something, and just yeah, that's crazy. So
Well, I'll tell you what.
you worked. You said that you are. We said go ahead.
I've been distraught all night long. This happened last night, and I've just been distraught all night long. And I'm thinking, why am I letting this get to me? Do you know this stupidity is not only costing people their financial freedom, their social freedom, but now because we have there's religion is getting involved in this, and I'm afraid this is costing people their souls.
Oh, I mean,
And-
I guarantee you that it. I mean, I don't know if I can guarantee you, but it is. It's lies, and these people think that they're Christians. Many people think that they're Christians, and they're not. There's so few people who are good examples of Christians, and this is kind of like the liberal versus conservative thing that I mentioned at the beginning, where all liberals are wrong,
Yeah.
and most conservatives are wrong too. But there are some conservatives who are
Well,
right,
yeah.
and so. You said that you were distraught over this, so it was shocking to you how.
I shouldn't have let it get to me. I
know,
I
but-
know better than this. It shouldn't have gotten to me. I'm normally a very centered person, but it was like I was talking to zombies. They could not understand a logical question. They couldn't
Right.
formulate a logical sentence. It was just fraught with hatred. And
Yeah,
I'm thinking, how the heck did this happen?
yeah. I mean, the Bible says.
Anyway.
The Bible says, "Don't be surprised when you see evil come into
That's
the
hard
world."
to do.
It is. Yeah, I understand. And
I think about.
do you
I
do?
think
Do you,
about,
are you familiar with
ahead.
Jesse's silent prayer thing that he does?
oh yeah.
That he
Yeah,
urges people
yeah.
to do. How long have you been listening?
Well, I've been. I used to broadcast Jesse's show on my radio show on my
Oh,
radio
nice.
station.
Cool. Out of
And
New Mexico.
So, yeah,
Cool.
and
So you said you're in the religious field. You broadcast religious radio.
I'm a preacher.
Okay.
I just happen to. I have been a meditator for years, and these guys, they just turn my apple cart over, and this just doesn't happen to me, and it was really out of concern for them. I can't believe that the brainwash going on as badly as it is in religious leadership. And I don't know, it got to me, and I was hoping, I just needed Jesse to pat me on the head and say, "You're doing fine."
I don't know. it's wild, and it can be shocking how blind, brainwashed, evil, and sneaky and deceitful people can be. And there are people out there, intellectuals out there, who are some of the most dangerous, evil people, I believe, because they validate this nonsense. They validate basically like being against the truth, but they come off as being fair-minded type of thing. And this is something that is like kind of whites get suckered into because we're so intellectual. And
Yes.
whereas if you just stick with the plain truth, you don't get sucked into the intellectual arguments, because you're just going to get sucked into hell with them. I mean, it's just such a temptation. I don't know exactly the antidote to to the nonsense that these people promote.
Yeah.
And then their followers say the wildest things, like what you kind of described. It's I don't know.
Well, see, I have a tendency to not want to believe that, as you say, this is just wickedness. I just want so badly to believe that this is just some kind of inadvertent brainwashing. They don't know that they've been brainwashed, but I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking that they're brainwashed and they like it that way. And please don't disturb my little world with facts and with, with the truth. And I'm thinking, wow, man, is this really just pure wickedness? Is it their intent to just constantly drive wedges between people of different skin color? How stupid can somebody be?
Yeah.
I mean, how wicked can they be?
I mean, I would say don't.
It's unbelievable.
I mean,
all right, I'm getting over this.
In all honesty, that's kind of like that's a soft, I hate to say it, like a liberal, emotional way to think about, to want to believe that people have good intentions and things like that. Because in reality,
I'm guilty.
Their intentions.
I'm guilty.
But their intentions and whether they want it or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because intentions really are total deception. They're irrelevant because
I agree with
you. You may intend to do right, but you don't. That doesn't make you a better person than the person who doesn't intend to be right. And because you're both evil, you're both going to hell. So I think it's something that you're hung up on that's not worth getting hung up on.
Yeah.
That's and that's part of the thing about intellectualism. The thing about intellectualism is you get sucked into the nuances. Oh, he has a very nuanced view of evil, but nuanced, it's all evil, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
What were you about to say?
I walked into this loving these people. I mean, it wasn't really.
So you thought.
I wanted to help. I just kept thinking that perhaps if you just looked at it from a little different perspective, perhaps it might occur to you that you're shadow boxing here. You're mad at people that don't exist.
Yeah.
You're mad at a concept, at something that just does not exist. There's not a prejudiced bone in them out. They couldn't have found somebody to be on this panel that does not have 1 ounce of this in them. But I'm telling you, when I hung up the phone, I looked at my assistant and I said, I think I am becoming prejudiced against black people.
Yeah, they kind of create the situation that they claim exists by being so.
Anyway.
But in all honesty, you can't.
You're doing very well listening to me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, but like, you can't expect people to see the truth just by talking, just by being logical or trying to change their perspective. Because,
you're
I just said,
my sermons to me. I guess I need to hear them.
But I mean, you're trying to win by intellect, by like by presenting facts and stuff to them, or perspective, like get them to change. And that stuff really doesn't work. It only works to on people who may be listening. Now, maybe people who were listening heard you, and they are already open-minded to the truth. But in general, like you have to, like what Jesse says, you have to be right and not just say the right thing. Because
that's right.
I could beat people over the head telling the so-called truth and just turn people away. And I'm as bad as them.
The good news is that there were people that heard the show, that called into the show, that the black people were calling in and agreeing with the white guy. And I think that just exacerbated the problem.
As Patrick is saying in the live chat, he's saying pearls before swine. Maybe this is what that means. And
well, I'm telling you, that's exactly the thought that I woke up with this morning. The pigsty is absolutely paved with pearls.
But I mean, and Mark is saying the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I don't know where that saying came from, but it's true. I think it's true anyway.
Yeah. Well, you've been very kind to listen to me whine. But,
you should call into Jesse's show and talk about this, because I think he may enjoy this conversation too, because there's only so much that I know and can say. And
yeah, I understand.
Well, I appreciate you, Don.
Yeah. Okay, man.
Anything else?
I appreciate you. No, that ought to do.
All right, take care.
Thank you. I feel better.
Cool. All right. And make sure you watch church. Right. You're a preacher. Are you a pastor of a church?
No.
Okay.
No.
Are you going to watch church?
I gave up my pastor. I'm sorry?
Are you going to watch church in an hour and 15 minutes? Hour and 10?
I certainly will. Yeah.
All right. Cool.
And I gave up the pastorate when I found out that it was, it was just, an invented idea. My mom didn't call me to preach, as Jesse said. So,
but by invented idea, what do you mean? Like being a pastor of an organized church?
Jesus made it very clear that the organizational chart in the kingdom of God, He is the head, and all of us are brethren. This hierarchical structure of the church is a man-made thing. And the idea, he says, one is your pastor, one is your master, one is your rabbi, even Christ.
Uh-huh.
And so when I realized that I'm occupying an office that doesn't belong to me, I got out of it as quickly as possible. Because I was afraid he was going to come back and find me sitting in his chair behind his desk.
But I mean, this is interesting. I'm getting another call too, but I don't know. But in the New Testament, there's deacons and all preachers and all those things.
Well, yeah, the scriptures teach that there is what has been labeled in seminaries as the fivefold ministry of God. I mean, it's the apostles, the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers. But nobody ever finishes that verse. It says that these men are in place to help us until we come to the unity of the faith. And it's through meditation. It's through meditation and relationship to God that we come to that unity of the faith. And then all of a sudden, what the apostle said when he says, you have no need that any man teach you.
Right.
But the Spirit that's in you, that the one that brought you in, is the one that will teach you. When you realize that it is within us, then that office of pastor kind of disappears.
Well, I'll tell you, the seminaries are, in my opinion, they're no good anymore. So they kind of like intellectualized and missing. They've tried to like put the Bible in their own words, and they really distorted it.
Well, yeah.
So, they put like concepts into their own biblical concepts and just really twisted it. So it's crazy.
That's right.
All right, appreciate it, Don. We'll talk again.
Okay, it was fun.
All right.
Thanks again.
Yep,
right,
you're welcome.
bye-bye.
Got one more caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, good morning, James. This is KT calling from
KT.
Maryland. How are you?
Fine, good to hear from you.
Good, good, good. So, I was just listening to your show and I heard you talking about the S-hole countries.
Right.
I just want to say, I think the problem here is people don't want to accept the truth.
Yeah.
And, they always say, in order to fix a problem, you have to accept the truth. And this so-called, immigrants here in the U.S. protesting don't want to accept the truth about their countries being assholes.
Right.
I'm originally from Uganda.
Right.
That's an asshole country. I can tell you right now. I didn't leave Uganda to come. I didn't leave Uganda because I just wanted to come on vacation here. I came because I wanted a better life. My family wanted a better life. My mother wanted a better life for us, and we left that country because it's an asshole country.
Yeah.
It's a fact. I mean, that's the only way we can try to, say the truth, accept the truth, and maybe we can change.
Yeah. And what do you think about Trump wanting to not bring people from S-hole countries who want to get out of there and want to get a better life?
You know what? I'm for the merit. I'm from the merit.
Merit-based.
I'm for the merit-based immigration.
Yeah.
Because I know that I see a lot of people that come here, and I know a lot of people, family, friends, who come here, and they don't go to school, they don't do anything, and they just come to work and take advantage of the programs.
Yeah. And they may live good lives, but they don't have the American values. They're not building up the country. They're voting liberal in many cases. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what it is, So I think we the first step is just people need to accept the truth.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Otherwise, great show. That's all I had to say. And keep up the great work. I'll be here listening and waiting for church.
All right, appreciate you, KT. Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right. Yeah, that's true. And I got a call last week. Many of you heard it. Probably all of you heard it, but many of you, and we want to spread the word about this. I meant to put it out there as a highlight, even on Jesse Lee Peterson's channel. But Ignacio from Mexico called last week, and he was deported. I think he may have been a childhood arrival. He was living in Georgia, and he was deported back in like 2011 or something like that. And he said that it was the best thing for him. He started to work down there. He reconnected with his father, who was down there. And through him reconnecting with his father, his sisters started to do that and basically returned and loved their father. And he became a Christian. He always wanted to become a Christian, but he didn't. There was a block. And he heard Jesse somehow through politics, maybe the videos on YouTube or something. But he heard Jesse, got into Jesse because the politics, the truth of this stuff that Jesse was saying was the truth. But he also started watching church. And Jesse said, you can't be a Christian unless you forgive. And so this guy, Ignacio, forgave. And if you listen to him talk, he called in last week, this January 7th. You listen to him talk, he's so genuine and basically like a good person and deep. And this is something that you come across every now and then with conservatives. I have never heard any liberal come across this way. They may say stuff that's intellectually stimulating and, oh, that's true, or stuff like that. But I have never come across a person I genuinely, totally can respect who is liberal. I've only come across, and only a few, conservatives who I genuinely think that person is on the right track, and that's something that I would like. You know what I mean? Think Jesse, think this guy Ignacio, think there's so many guys. G from San Diego, he calls in, so it's like a breath of fresh air. to hear these guys, and they're just such genuine people. Donald Trump was kind of liberal before, maybe. Yeah, he was very liberal. He was promoting abortion and stuff like that. But he eventually came over to the right side, and you don't come across that among the liberals. And so that's just one of the things I wanted to point out about, if you don't really know about politics and all that stuff, consider the people. Consider the people involved. There are a lot of bad conservatives, people who are hypocrites, people who... That's why conservatism is so weak in this country. That's why the Republican Party is so weak. That's why Christianity, not Christianity, but the church, so-called church in this country is so weak, because we've become intellectual, rationalizing, sinning. Oh, we can sin and just be forgiven. And just all that stuff is so fake. We've become fake, but there are some real, genuine people. And I've only noticed conservatives being that way. Like my dad was one of the people that I respected, and I just basically trusted him on the politics stuff. So that's just something I wanted to put out there. I got a message from this person, Chris. He said, practicing inner silence is not new. Oh, we were talking about this quiet prayer. He said, it is a technique known to cultures all over the world for thousands of years as a universal method of subduing the devilish mind. And the mind is really devilish if you consider it. It delivers as promised the fact that Jesse uses it in a Christian context should not be controversial. But it is, because people want to assume that because meditation is such a huge thing in New Age and Eastern stuff, they want to assume that, oh, it's just an evil thing and there's no truth to it. But there is truth to quiet. God says be quiet. And also, there was one other thing I wanted to point out about the quiet prayer. In the Bible, I was confused last week because Jesse said at church that, and Jesse's always been saying this, that every thought you get is a lie, it's from Satan, it's not from you, and all those things. And I can understand that stuff is, I can understand that stuff may not be from me. It's either from basically God or Satan, from good or evil. But in the Bible, it says God's thoughts are not our thoughts. Boom, Jesse was right. God's thoughts are higher than our thoughts. So, therefore, don't be getting into your intellect. And I don't really understand this exactly why the intellect is so bad, but I just know in practice it just is. If you consider that the intellectual people of the world rationalize homosexuality, they rationalize sinning, even the intellectual Christians, they rationalize it. By rationalize, I mean they're excusing it. They're coming up with ways that it can be all right to do. And it's not all right to do. So that was one other point that I wanted to make. God's thoughts are not our man's thoughts. And Jesse's main thing too, which he mentioned when I told him that I wanted to talk about this, his thing is about anger. And in the book of James, which I was forced to memorize as a kid, it says, man's anger does not bring about the righteous life that God requires. Or that's how I memorized it. But it does not bring about the righteousness of God. And so there you have it. And all these people that quote Ephesians that say, be angry and sin not. I don't know how they know this verse. That was never a main verse to me. But the way that I read that verse, because I read the NIV, which is not the best translation, but it says, in your anger, do not sin. Anyways, 4 verses later, it says, get rid of all anger. So all these people, they're the ones who are cherry picking, but they accuse Jesse of cherry picking. So it's a mess to be a Christian nowadays. Not because being a Christian is bad, but because there are so many lies that are just spread, and they permeate the elitist, I will call it, Christian culture. meaning the seminaries and all the pastors and all that stuff. And they have answers so quick. They have answers to excuse their sin or to excuse other people's sin. Anyways, that wraps up this episode of the Hake Report. And I appreciate you joining me. And we have church with Jesse Lee Peterson in 1 hour. Go to rebuildingtheman.com/church. Make sure you subscribe to that channel, which is Bond Rebuilding the Man on YouTube. Bond Rebuilding the Man. And support Bond. Go to rebuildingtheman.com, rebuildingtheman.com, and donate. I do. And you should too. Thank you guys. Take care.